Hello, everybody. Happy New Year's and welcome back to Cinematic Universe. My name is Ernesto Martinez. Joining me, as always, is Damon Hawk. How are you, man?
I'm good.
All right. Supergirl is back from the fall break, and we pick up exactly where we left off at Lord Industries, where Non and his Kryptonian Legion are pretty much causing mayhem, and Supergirl jumps in to save the day. And they have a pretty, cool looking aerial fight that ends up with both of them buried into the ground, with Non being the victor, as I expected, because if not, that would have been serious writing issues. And everything from there is pretty much, Non takes hold of Hank Henshaw, which at this point we all know is Martian Manhunter, aka John Jones, hostage. The DEO is under investigation and under the control of General Sam Lane to get Hank Henshaw back, while at the same time, you know, the concern of Astra and whether they want to trade her for Hank Henshaw, and Supergirl also has to deal with the fact that Cat Grant knows that she's Supergirl and she has to, deal with that. So, Damon,
Sir,
what'd you think?
I liked it. It took a little while to really get going for me, but I thought it was a fairly solid episode. I keep running into this situation where I'll start and I'll be about 10 minutes into it and I'm like, why am I watching this? It's so ridiculous and so formulaic and so bad in places. And then like halfway in I'm hooked and I'm totally committed and it's fantastic. I'm like I'm all over the place with this, and it's driving me crazy. But I thought it was a good episode. I liked the stuff with Henshaw, Jean. I'm glad that Kara's in the know on that situation now. Hopefully, she'll be able to keep that under her hat. Although, who knows?
I think it's getting to a point where the Supergirl episodes are strong at parts and not as a whole. And it really just depends on what your experience is watching it. And we can all agree that Melissa Benoist is still awesome.
Yep.
I mean, regardless of what material she's given to work with, she's not the problem. I love seeing General Sam Lane every time he pops up because you know what to expect by General Sam Lane. Aliens are evil, humans are, not, and all that stuff. My favorite part had to have been when General Sam Lane just walks into Astra's cell and brings out the torture, serum, laced with kryptonite. Like he tells her a story about when he was a kid and his dad took him to watch the day the Earth stood still, and how he basically told her that story just to tell her, I'm just telling you this as a sign of respect as a commanding officer for what I'm about to do. And I'm like, oh my god, that is so Sam Lane.
Yeah, no, that was really nice. And I mean, I've been cringing actually every time he came on camera, but he's really started doing it for me, Kind of really working. And that was a really strong scene.
Yeah.
I think they cast well, and that they're at least writing him reasonably well when he's not just being ridiculous. When he actually has something to say or something to do, I feel like he's really bringing it. So that's good. I also really like the dynamic between Winn and James.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're not so much in an open rivalry with each other, I think that's kind of working. And I love the fact that there wasn't any googly-eyed shit this week over James and Kara. I thought that was really nice, and I think that's something that they should aim for.
Yeah. I mean, the whole love triangle thing was going to get really boring really quick. I mean...
Oh, it already had.
Like, it's like, no, just move on to other things, and whenever it feels appropriate, return to it, but just leave that whole, like, no, I should be with her, no, I should be with her thing out of it. Also, speaking of Winn, Seriously, this guy should not be working at Catco. He should be working for the Department of Defense with all his hacking skills.
Yeah, he's pretty impressive.
I mean, it's to expect it for somebody who's related to the Toyman, so his thing with technology, should be astounding. I think, I like that not general, I mean, non. I think him and Astra are both kind of together. If you put them together, they're kind of like being the Zod of the show, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a little dull sometimes, because they're all just, non is just being a brute, which, okay, it's fine. But there's nothing more beyond that.
Well, he's not very charismatic at all.
Exactly, that's what
I mean, all the charisma out of that pairing comes from Astra. And I really feel like she's doing a pretty good job, but she's got the lion's share of the responsibility as far as making it work. I mean, you're right. He's a brute. He's a dull instrument, which is kind of hilarious considering he still has his intellect as opposed to the actual non who doesn't. But yeah, I mean, I could watch Sandpaper and be more enthralled than watching this guy. He's just, there's nothing there. Which, I mean, I guess that's kind of the point. He's militaristic to a fault.
Okay, but General Sam Lane is militaristic to a fault too, but at least he has a more interesting,
Yeah, but there's something there with him, I mean, you already, you know his daughters, that he's got a problem with aliens. There's some history there. I mean, with Non, it's like, I just don't feel like there's anybody there.
I think my main negative here is how they pretty much backpedal with the whole Cat Grant finding out that she's Supergirl. And I don't know, the moment when she found out, it felt like there was like a mutual acceptance there.
Yeah.
And that episode, I'm just like, okay, well, maybe Cat Grant will lay off of her. They can actually work together and all that stuff, which, understandable, the whole boss and the sister, but at least that way, Cat Grant could kind of like jumped out from whatever plane she's been and be a little bit more humble. And here, it's like they forgot that they wrote that scene prior and Cat just went back to being Cat. I just couldn't stand it for this episode. Like the whole, just admit that you're Supergirl and blah, 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 blah. And then the whole thing with Kara also backpedaling. Like, you know what? Just admit it and go from there. I mean, we live in an age right now, and this is not me knocking down on the mythology of Superman and Supergirl, but we live in an age right now where the base of wearing your glasses as an identity and stuff like that is very hard to pull off. The whole backpedaling just didn't work for me, and it was a real shame that they didn't push forward with that, and they needed a cop out with asking John Jones for assist. Hey, can you be my double so that we can shut my boss up? And you're putting them there together, and it's just like either you're really blind or you really can't tell that they look alike.
Yeah, it was just Cat saving face.
Yeah, at the very least. I mean, I know they've done it in the comics, and it's not that I'm trying to justify one or the other. What you said? She's saving face, and let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I picked up on it. I mean, as soon as she started throwing out the ultimatum, I was like, okay, well, there it is. He's gonna masquerade as her, and it'll be, I mean, at that point I was like, okay, that means that in this episode, he will escape or be saved from the Kryptonian people, and so, I mean, the stakes were kind of gone at that point. Mm-hmm. Maybe for the casual viewer, they might not have thought of that, but I mean, it's been done to death in the comics, so it had to happen.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, oh, that's really cool, because, you get to see him change from Supergirl to Martian Manhunter, and then back to Hank Henshaw. I was like, that's pretty cool, but then at the same time, I was like, you guys.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword sometimes.
Yeah. The temptation had to have been huge. Because these guys, these comic book guys, they're just like, oh, dude, you know what we could do? And they're like, yes, we do know, because we read that comic book too.
Yeah.
In any case, it was a good episode. It was a decent way to come back from the winter break, such as it was. What do we have, like 2 weeks off?
I think so. I'll have to check because I know that we have 2 weeks from now. We have Agent Carter to jump on. I'll have to check when the next episode of Supergirl is. I'll pretty much everybody will know at that point. The last thing that I'll say is that we got to see a little bit more of the design that they chose for Krypton in this episode. I mean, it's almost identical to the Man of Steel designs, but not by much. I don't know. I kind of expected some more crystal, fortresses or something like that, but that wasn't the case either. Astra's sister, Alura, she's like, "Wow, you're still wearing the same clothes. Did all this take place in one day? It would at least makes more sense if all this took place in one day on Krypton."
Yeah, or maybe they're so advanced that they just wear the same thing all the time. Who knows, man?
Who knows? But that's really just nitpicking at this point. It's really not a negative anymore.
Yeah.
Last thing is, what do you think Maxwell is, holding out in Vault 52?
I don't know. I'm anxious to see where that's going. I mean, it could be
Bizarro.
It could be that he's got something going on with the remains or schematics of Red Tornado. I mean, I really think we'll see something else there.
Yeah.
As far as there's not really precedent for much. So I mean, it's probably something that they're throwing in from scratch. Because I've been going back and rereading the old Justice League International series, which is where Maxwell Lord got his start. And it's interesting because Max was just a businessman. I mean, he was like a low rent Lex Luthor who started up a new Justice League, or kind of superimposed himself as the benefactor of a Justice League that had already formed. And then later on in the books, he becomes like the head of Checkmate and everything, but he was never really this tech guy that they're having him be. And the fact that his company is called Lord Industries makes it look like they're kind of trying to do a kind of a semi-villainous Ted Cord.
Yeah.
So who knows? I think they stayed on the 52 shot just a little bit too long.
Because we know DC loves their 52.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Everywhere. And I like it. It makes me laugh. That's why I like it, because I'm like, you guys and your 52.
Yeah. But then, it's like that Austin Powers joke that goes on just a little bit too long. I was like, okay, let's move on, guys.
Let's move on, yeah. I'm gonna I've been pretty on point with this show and my guesses, so
yeah, you have.
I wouldn't be surprised if, I did mention a few episodes back that Bizarro might be introduced. Maybe there's a Bizarro behind that door. I'm 50% going with the fact that there might be a Bizarro in there, so let's see how it goes. I mean, he created Putty that pretty much counteracted against Heat Vision, so I'm not surprised if it will end up being that.
I guess we'll find out.
We will. And that's all for us, guys. I mean, we both thought the episode was good. But Lisa Benoist, great, beautiful, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Say about her.
Until the next episode, bye-bye.
Bye, guys.